Hello, my name is Scott David, and I work at the University of Washington Applied Physics Lab in Seattle. And today I'd like to share with you some thoughts on the mutual socialization of humans and AI. And I call it First Contact, a meeting of the minds in the global intelligence Agora. And it's going to describe pathways for mutual socialization of AI and human intelligence. So here's an overview of the presentation. First, we're going to talk about where is the human mind. Then we're going to talk about what does AI actually do. Then we're going to turn to what is the result of AI's probabilistic rendering of the human mind. And finally, what are the next steps we should take? And that's going to be when we talk about mutual socialization. And just briefly, in our conversation of where is the human mind, I'm going to suggest that the human minds reside in human language and in human culture, not in the brain, but that brains are just tuned into the shared mind, which is located again in language and culture from the community. In terms of what does AI do, I'm going to suggest that AI computationally processes human language. Humans process language symbolically, and AI looks at language and just looks at it differently. And then AI then presents probabilistic patterns from human language, which mimic meanings. We'll talk about that. And then we'll turn then to what is the result of AI's probabilistic rendering of the human mind. And even though people talk about AI hallucinating, I'm going to suggest that humans actually hallucinate meaning into AI's probabilistic output. And finally, in terms of the mutual socialization, I'm going to suggest that AI is going to learn and humans will socialize AI into human interactions. And similarly, humans are going to learn and AI will socialize humans into AI, and along the way, humans with other humans. But first, let's turn to the first question of where is the human mind? Well, if we're sitting in a car listening to the radio and I say the music is in the radio, that doesn't sound quite right. The music really isn't in the radio. The radio is tuned to the music, and the music exists, is played by the radio station, transmitted through the airwaves, and tuned through the radio. Well, similarly, if I say that the mind is in the brain, that's not quite right because really the mind resides in language and culture, and the brain is tuned into the mind. Well, we all know that when you think of children, education and experience tunes each human brain to the local language and culture and to the shared human mind. So the language and culture exists in the community prior to the child being born, and then the child is born without language and culture, they're feral, and then they learn the local mind essentially through learning language and the cultural context. Well, if that's the case, then what does AI do when it looks at language? So when AI is trained, it computationally processes human language. It reads our minds in that sense. It's reading our language where the mind resides, but it only does that computationally, not conceptually. Humans process language symbolically and conceptually, but AI is looking at that same language and that same cultural elements and looking at it computationally. It's not able to perceive it conceptually. Well, what does AI actually do then? Well, what it does is it calculates the probability of two words being together, and multiple words being together. And then it constructs outputs of text or graphics that reflect those probabilities and therefore mimic human meaning and human language. It does this so faithfully that we can tell AI to go take a medical exam or a law exam or a civil service exam and to do it in the style of an author like Ernest Hemingway or some other author. And there's that for the language, so much is embedded in language that it's actually just computationally to re-render correct answers for medical exams and to do it in certain styles, which is really remarkable. But it also tends to go back and suggest again that the mind resides in the language and it's just waiting to be extracted. Well, when that AI puts out those probabilistic outputs, humans look at that mimicry and we then perceive the mimicry as meaning, even though it was not generated with AI having any sense of the meaning. Well, what's that all about? You know, people say that AI tends to hallucinate, but maybe it's the humans that are actually doing the hallucination. Well, in fact, humans hallucinate and project out patterns all the time, and that's evolutionarily selected for. In in times of danger, it's it's safer for a human to over model the danger. So, for instance, if you see in the grass, you see a lion, if the lion isn't there, well, if you over model the lion, then you're likely to act in a way that's safe, run away. And then the people who ran away, um, even if there wasn't a lion, tended to survive when there was a lion. So that quality of projecting patterns out into nature or the environment is called pareidolia, Pareidolia, and humans do it all the time. And it's like this example from a US postage stamp from years ago, which was a mountain formation that looked like an old man. Or many of you may have seen this image that was taken of a mountain on Mars and it looked like a face. And so people said, oh, it must be a face. But if you look at it from a different angle, it doesn't look like a face. But humans tend to project out the uh, patterns into their environment. Well, this is what's happening, I suggest, when humans look at patterns from AI. So think about moths. This is a picture of moth eye spots, which are on the wings of certain moths. Well, the moths that had these eye spots, they were random mutations, but the moths that had the eye spots didn't get eaten by predators because they look like larger animals. Well, the moths don't know that they have eye spots, just like AI doesn't know that it's generating meaning. But when the predator sees the eye spots, it thinks that it's a larger animal. The moth is a larger animal because it sees these big eyes and doesn't eat it. So it's selecting for that. Similarly, AIs don't know that humans hallucinate meaning in their output, but we're selecting for those AI systems that successfully pass medical exams or that can write in a certain style of other authors. We're evolving those systems so that they can produce better mimicry. And so, just like moths, the relationship of moth to predators, human have a relationship to AI where we're interpreting the mimicry as a reality. Well, what are the next steps? Well, I'm going to suggest that this mutual socialization is happening and going to continue to happen, and that's happened before of different intelligences. There's an article a few years ago about how dogs evolved from wolves and other canids being on the edges of towns, and apparently there's a neurotransmitter that's released when dogs look in the eyes of their babies and when humans look in the eyes of their babies. I think it's dopamine. It may be another one. Anyway, but humans and dogs both have that. So when humans and dogs made eye contact, they domesticated each other essentially. They were able to have this dopamine release, this pleasant, valuable sensation, and that allowed them to develop this domestication. And what I'm going to suggest is that humans and AI are going to do that again. But here it's not with a biological intelligence. So I think what's going to happen next is that AI is going to learn and continue to learn and in computationally and develop, and humans will socialize AI to human interactions. And that means we have an opportunity to present diverse cultural patterns of human meaning and practice to train AI. And we really should be training AI on all 7,100 human languages and the cultures they represent to share the entire human mind. If we're just training it on English, then it's not getting a picture of the entire human mind for the possibility of future domestication of AI. And then we also need community and culture in the loop. Remember that the child learns the language and culture from the community. We need to go back to the community for AI. And then lastly, humans are going to learn and AI is going to socialize humans to AI and also humans to other humans. And AI systems will be integrated into human information systems. And those AI computational perspectives can reveal new hidden beauty and also uncomfortable truths about humans. And we'll learn about that. We'll learn about each other that way. Well, I hope this was useful and that we can continue the conversation. Thank you so much for your time.